Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood night. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Gessman, coming to you on a Thursday, August 24th. The LA Galaxy getting ready to play a game. I mean it this time. I'm not kidding. Playing a game against Chicago coming up on Saturday night, a return after, 28 days since the last time the LA Galaxy played. It's so long, it feels like the beginning of the season. Greg Vanney said it felt like the beginning of the season. And the Galaxy have a whole bunch of new bodies to work into that. We've got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, a whole bunch to cover. This isn't a live show, which is weird because YouTube was airing and wouldn't let us connect and do a whole thing. But we're uploading the video anyway, so you still have it. But we're glad to be joined and filling in as a guest co-host tonight. The man himself, I'm his biggest fan, of course, is Mr. Alex Ruiz. Alex, how's it going, buddy?
Doing good, man. I got my starting debut for Corner of the Galaxy. I've been on the phone, off the bench, but finally my first start, so glad to be here.
Yeah, I go. You and Maya Yoshida are in the same boat right now. You're getting that first team experience. So no, we're super glad to have you. I've always joked about it that I am the official biggest fan of your fan club. I started the fan club. I have the Facebook page. I got the little shrine on the wall. You can't see it back behind me, but it's there. I'm glad to join. You're doing something new too, so and I want to make sure everybody gets that from the very beginning because the striker's on hiatus, which we know how that works in normal soccer circles. If you've been around long enough, you know what a hiatus means. You did a lot of great work with them. What are you doing now, though?
Yeah, right now I've started a Substack to keep my coverage going. I think I've really enjoyed covering the Galaxy in many different ways. So my Substack called the Galactic Tribune, I think something I've really been working on since, I've kind of been on hiatus with the striker before it was officially announced. But I'm definitely really excited to keep my coverage going. As you know, I love writing. I love analyzing. My, type of writing is more analysis driven than it is, kind of summary driven.
Right.
Definitely going to look to add a lot more content in there, some videos in there, trying to do some film study type videos in there for if you want to become a paid subscriber. That's definitely something that's in the works for me right now. So if you want more LA Galaxy content coming your way, be sure to subscribe to the Galactic Tribune.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's it. It's only $10,000 a month, so he only needs one subscriber. That's really what he's always. No, how much is it? So that way people know what they're getting into.
Yeah, just $5 a month.
That's easy.
That's the fee. Again, just a cup of Starbucks, right? So
that's it. That's all you need. Yeah, you don't need that coffee anyway. It makes you jittery. Everybody really needs to go with the Mexican Coke. I brought back the Mexican Coke for tonight, which is, I would like to say, having a very strong resurgence, at least down here in the white parts of Orange County. All of a sudden, everybody has the Mexican Coke, which I'm glad because, in my opinion, the better tasting Coca-Cola. I don't know if you have an opinion on that, Alex.
No, I love it. I mean, every time I go down to Mexico, it's probably the best part, getting the authentic Coke, sodas, everything there. So definitely miss going to Mexico this summer, but I cannot wait to drink up.
You could have lived in Mexico if you left whenever the Galaxy were eliminated from Leagues Cup, and then you could have lived there for like a whole month and then not missed any LA Galaxy soccer by the time you get. It feels like I joked around on Twitter. I said, I'm pretty sure the Galaxy last played a game in 2014. That's what it feels like in terms of the gap. Does this... I was certainly pessimistic on Monday's show, and I'll remain that way. This is not good for the Galaxy, the fact that they actually have to reckon back to the time when they were playing soccer, and a league game at that is even further away. So What's your overall take on just the break?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Josh. I mean, I think this takes a lot away from the team when it comes to that chemistry they're starting to build in a way. We saw the good patch of form that they had right before Leagues Cup, and now you're kind of starting back at zero a bit. I mean, you're losing that match sharpness. All the other teams in the league have played at least a game. The Galaxy just feel a step behind when at this moment in time they should be looking to be in that extra gear, and unfortunately, due to all these circumstances, they're kind of back at square one.
This is the most unlucky year I think I've ever seen the Galaxy. You have 3 season-ending injuries. You had the start of the season delayed by heavy rains. You had the restart of the season delayed by a hurricane in quotation marks. But certainly, I've been seeing a lot of pictures of where it actually did get pretty nasty. So I'm big on the tropical storm. It had a pretty big wallop in some areas, just not so much on the coast. And I think we're glad we dodged it. Having said that, this doesn't feel. I would love to be the guy who's going to tell you, and lots of people will tell you, well, and Greg even tried to do it today. I heard him in his press conference when you were out there talking to him, but he was like, we got the guys worked in, the new guys, they got more time. And I'm like, so Alex, they played what, 3 inter squad scrimmages since then because they couldn't find anybody to play with, right?
Yeah, that's what Greg Vanney said today. Talked about how, now that they've got some newer guys in, they're able to play 11 on 11 with some subs in. So kind of emulate a real game as best they can. But obviously you can't really do that in training. You don't have the environment, the pressure, all the extra things that come with a real match against an opponent. But I mean, that's kind of the state of the Galaxy right now. They just trying to just hang on by a thread at this moment. And I think, I'm a very positive person. I still think there's a chance for them to make the playoffs. But again, I just feel like you said, this has been such an unlucky season, unfortunate, full of twists and turns, very rocky, very turbulent season, and just 12 games left to finish it out and see what happens.
That's nuts to me. I mean, just that whole thing is nuts to me, just in terms of, what we're expecting of them, sort of what they're trying to do, all this stuff. It just feels like no matter what the LA Galaxy do right now, they're not going to be successful with it. It feels like they've been, I joked. They're rolling a boulder up the hill, Alex. They continue to roll that boulder up the hill, and eventually it's going to either roll back down on them or they're going to get to the top of the mountain. I think it's 90% that boulder runs them over on the way out, and people certainly questioning whether Greg Vanney sticks around. I, of course, will continue to sort of say that I don't think there's any appetite within the LA Galaxy, at least right now, to try and switch coaches whenever they don't have a president, they don't have other things. It certainly seems like Greg Vanney will be here for the start of next year. How much rope he has will sort of depend on how this ends. I think you even asked Alex, or maybe it was Damien who was out there as well, but you guys were sort of saying, you're like, this seems fairly similar to last year in terms of the stretch that you guys have to make. What did Greg Vanney sort of have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, just going back on the for context, right? For their last 12 games, I think they only lost 1 of their last 12 games.
Right.
So now they kind of need to go on a similar type run. And, I think Greg kind of just mentioned, they just need to get into form, need to, build that momentum game by game and, kind of be able to take those little steps to eventually, reach their goal, which is to make the playoffs. And, it's such a tough task to ask for because in last year's situation, they're a little bit better off, a lot closer to the playoff line. This year, they're 9 points out. I mean, sure, they have games in hand, but I mean, just looking at the standings, it just makes it so hard to kind of visualize them be able to climb it up. Again, the Western Conference is just so competitive and crazy every single year, so you don't really know what's going to happen. And, sure, they are certainly trying to emulate that form, but the situations given the roster, the injuries, the overall situation with the club is just so much more different that it makes you kind of, really question a lot of, does it really feel like they could go on this run again? Because for me, I still kind of do have that faith that they could. Again, I'm always an optimist, but again, there's just so many more questions that linger this season compared to last.
Yeah, let's throw it to Greg Vanney here real quick just to start it off. Why not do audio early, being we're already talking about it? Here was Greg Vanney talking today. I think this is sort of, they were saying, what is sort of the results? What do you expect? How can you close that gap? So here's Greg Vanney talking about that.
It really is about us getting results. We got to get on a run. We've got to pick up, get on a series of wins. You do that, and you can close the gap fast. We obviously have a couple games in hand on some teams too, and if you can make do with those, then the gap actually isn't that big. It's 4 points maybe instead of what looks like 10. So we've got to take advantage of the games in hand, and we've got to, again, get on a run where we are, especially at home, where we're getting wins. And if we can do a really good job of winning at home and because I think we have 7 of 12 at home. If we can do a good job of getting our 3 points at home, then take some of the stress off of some of those road games, where if we can pick up a couple along the way, we're probably in a pretty good spot. But we just got to maintain focus like we did last year. It's one game at a time. Each game is kind of a playoff knockout type of mentality. Play each play with the right concentration and make sure that we take our chances when we get them, and play each game like it's our own version of a playoff game, because that's kind of the state of where we're at.
All right, there's Greg Vanney talking. So again, I do like he played the game in hand trick, which I mean fans are guilty of doing it all the time. I think reporters do it too. But you're like, hey, you have 3 games in hand, so really, I mean, it's not 9 points, 10 points behind. You're only like 6 points behind, as long as you win those. The sort of crazy thing for me is that he talks about 7 to 12 at home, and that's I think that's correct. When looking at what is coming up, but so you get 21 points. Let's say you win every single one of those, which, by the way, if you look at the schedule, not a lock at all in order to in terms of trying to say, oh yeah, we're just going to win all the home games. I mean, this Chicago team is not playing poorly right now. Now, after the break, they came out and they lost to Orlando coming out of it, right? So there's some of that, but they're not playing poorly right now. The away game at San Jose, that would be a great one to pick up a point on, but that's a difficult place to play. Home to Houston. Houston was playing well, so I don't think you're going to be sitting there. St. Louis is playing well. Minnesota is playing okay. In fact, I think they're getting better. Portland, we don't know about Portland yet. We have to see sort of how they eventually round out without a new coach and sort of sitting there. And then you have Salt Lake, who was playing well, and Dallas, who is always difficult to beat. So just going with those 7 games, you're sitting there saying there's a very good likelihood, especially for a Galaxy team who's never won 3 in a row under Greg Vanney, it would be very difficult to say, oh, well, just give them the 21 points they're going to get off those 7 games, which, by the way, if they did pull that off, Alex, it's a very good possibility they do make the playoffs. They win 7 of their last 12 games. They get a result here or there on some of the other ones. They're in the playoffs as far as I'm concerned. Also, I would like to point out, win every single game and you're absolutely in the playoffs. There's zero chance that you don't get that after getting 36 points out of those last 12 games. But I mean, does any of that? That seems like he's, and as he should. I would never say that a coach shouldn't be guilty of this. Is he sugarcoating it? He's saying, hey, if everything goes our way, well, yeah, if everything goes your way. Have you seen the rest of the season? That hasn't been the case, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we know how important it is in Major League Soccer to be able to win your home games and at least get a result. And we've seen a bit of those struggles at times recently, like the one game that comes to mind, right? Where they're winning against Sporting Kansas City and then they lose that lead. It wouldn't surprise me if that's a lot of these home games for the LA Galaxy. They've just been that team that's very inconsistent at home, and at times when they're caught lacking, they pay for it dearly. So obviously Greg's going to be optimistic about it and say that they could be able to do it. But we've seen in these last couple of years, and like you mentioned earlier, Josh, this team just has really struggled to get on a long winning streak with Greg Vanney at the helm. So there's a lot of questions here that are going to need answering. And I think right now the answers from assuming what we've seen from this team and from the past aren't looking so good and looking like the right answers that could get this team back into the playoff picture.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing now is that you're relying on the fact that, you brought in, what was it, 6 players total with Billy Sharp, I think. I keep saying 5, but there was another one after there were 5. So with Billy Sharp on there, I mean, the whole thing, it was funny, they were talking about the Discord today. I said before the transfer window, it's going to be as far as the LA Galaxy strikers can carry them, because this team has created chances. It's among league leaders in chances created, right? And among leaders in quotation marks from the bottom side in terms of finishing those chances, right? So it really hasn't been anything else. And I know people want to blame the defense for a lot of things. Listen, I'm telling you, you play from behind, your defense is going to get scored on. If you're constantly trying to pressure and pass the ball into the back of the net because nobody can finish, that's going to put pressure for turnovers and when you commit. So there's a lot of things that affect the defense, which I think is actually fairly solid, that you're not going to see if the Galaxy suddenly starts scoring goals. That's what they're missing, though, is scoring the goals. Dejan Joveljic has been atrocious at it. Preston Judd. I mean, I don't know what you want from Preston Judd. That's tough to be like, oh, well, Preston Judd needs to do more. It's Preston Judd. He's probably doing about what you expect to get out of him. So Preston Judd there. somebody said, why should I be excited about Billy Sharp? And this is one of the reasons that you should be excited about these last 12 games is Billy Sharp is a proven goal scorer. He finds himself in the right place at the right time, very much in the similar vein of Chicharito in terms of maybe a poacher, right? But just in terms of being able to finish, he's not going to be afraid to put the ball in the back of the net. It's all the guy has done for his entire career. He's put up really good numbers for Sheffield and anybody else really he's played for. He knows how to put the ball in the back of the net. So for me, I think that's the thing to get excited for. A team that is among league leaders in chances finally has somebody who can convert them as long as he stays healthy. And there was some news on him today too, right? Greg Vanney said he was north of the border.
Yep, he's in Canada and Calgary, getting his visa appointment done. Greg mentioned that depending on when that process is done, he'll be able to possibly play on Saturday. But I mean, I think the chances of him playing are pretty low. I mean, this is a guy who hasn't played in some time, still trying to gain his match fitness, match sharpness. I don't really see him playing in this game. But nonetheless, he's a different guy on this team. Like you mentioned, right? This team is going to go as far as the striker could take him. And that's what happened last year. If we remember last year in their last 12 games, Chicharito was on fire. He was scoring goals. He was dangerous. He was a guy you could easily rely on. This year, the Galaxy don't have that guy up to number 9. Dejan Joveljic has been very inconsistent all season long. Like you mentioned, Preston Judd is doing what I think everybody thought Preston Judd would do. But there's still some limitations to his game that, really hold him back from, advancing and evolving in his game to take that next step. So with Billy Sharp, I think that this team is going to have a poacher again. Just looking at all the goals, I think Sheffield United posted like an hour-long compilation of his goals, and I just stood there on my laptop just watching all of those. And the one thing I just took away was he is such a good poacher, so good at getting in the right spots. He's not afraid to put his body on the line. The guy just instinctively knows where to be at the right time, and the Galaxy just need any of that at this point. I mean, they're one of the best chance-creating teams in the league. They have players that are able to put in the right pass. We've seen Ricky Puig multiple times be able to just find that right ball into the box, but just it's not converted. So I think Billy Sharp's going to add an extra dimension. Obviously, he's a 37-year-old, and you kind of don't want to put the expectation of him as a savior. But I mean, at this point, you'll take it, considering what Joveljic and Judd have been able to produce all season long.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing is that they haven't. I mean, but there's also additions, and it was funny. Not to put Alex out on here, and like I didn't ask everybody else before Alex, but Hammer was on a flight. Sophie had a date night, and Christian Miles was getting ready to announce UCLA soccer, and I was talking with UCLA women's soccer. And he was saying how he had to memorize and go through 35 players on a roster. I'm like, oh man, that's a lot for an announcer and stuff like that. That's a lot to do. But we were talking about the Galaxy, and I said, I think Billy Sharp is a highlight. He goes, yeah. He goes, and don't forget Diego Fagundes. Diego Fagundes very well could throw this LA Galaxy offense into overdrive. I mean, even somebody like Michael Barrios, who is very much, I think, a hit or a miss signing, but I'm not necessarily concerned that it's not going to break the bank, nothing's going to hurt, but he's more direct, and sometimes the LA Galaxy need to be more direct. And it's not so much about, because I know Greg Vanney gets this a lot, it's not so much about the passing. It's not that. I have never had a problem with the passing. I don't have a problem with the possession. It's actually when the Galaxy get impatient. I'm a little bit more like Vanney, and it's like you get impatient and then things break down and then there's counterattacks and everything else. And that's not trying to pass the ball in the back of the net. It's looking for the right opportunities. And I think that the Galaxy haven't done that. I think Diego Fagundes allows them to be a little more direct in terms of getting out to the wing, crossing into the box, getting stuff on there. I think Billy Sharp gives them a chance to finish. I think Dejan Joveljic is going to have his say in these last 12 games as well. And if he gets on a roll, then the LA Galaxy can get on a roll. Again, the playoffs are going to be won and lost at the number 9 position for me. I think everything else is fairly good, fairly well situated for the LA Galaxy. And Vanney was high. He was high on the team. He talked about increased intensity because there's a lot more competition, and he talked about maturity increasing because of Yoshida and Billy Sharp, right? By the way, he calls him Sharpie, and I am not going to be on that one. They call Dejan Decky too, and I that's not one that I'm going to be on either. So Sharpie, no, that's not going to happen. Billy, that's fine. That's what he likes to be called. Billy Sharp can certainly do that stuff. So, I mean, for me, Yoshida's, I think, is an important piece. I think Cerrillo is going to be an important piece because Brugman's out, right? And so you're going to probably see more of Cerrillo, although depends. There was an update on Mark Delgado. What did Greg Vanney tell you about Mark Delgado?
Yeah, he told us that Mark Delgado has been training the last couple of days. He's, trying to build back into match sharpness as well. Did mention that there's a possibility he probably won't thrust him out into the starting lineup, which makes sense because Mark Delgado is such an essential player, especially now with Gaston Brugman going out. So you don't want to necessarily make a high-risk situation for him to get re-injured. And, now you really have to think about your options in that midfield. But yeah, I mean, Delgado, watching him today in training, I mean, he's moving around, he's shooting, he's active. So he's going to be back on the pitch soon. Again, it's just about managing how aggressive do you want to be with his minutes. And again, like I mentioned, he's a guy who's going to do the dirty work, cover ground, cover those passing lanes, a guy that, does all that. And with Brugman out, you need players like that more than ever because Brugman was so essential in just doing those dirty little things. So Mark Delgado, we'll see if he does make the game day roster, more than likely he'll be on the bench. I find it highly unlikely he starts.
Yeah, he's going to be, I think, an important piece for them, as you mentioned, with Brugman being out. I'm interested to see what the lineup looks like, though, with Vanney sort of whenever he gets everybody who he wants, right? Does Billy Sharp come in and start? Are they going to have Joveljic come off the bench? Because, I mean, it's been a pretty well-established argument that Joveljic plays better off the bench, so you're going to give him the last 20, 30 minutes. You're going to let Billy Sharp run in there, and if you need to, you'll have two guys up top again, right? And maybe they play differently, so two guys up top makes sense. Or you can bring in somebody like Michael Barrios, who could play with two up top, right? They have options now. Vanney was like, we absolutely got better, which is interesting because I agree, but I also sit there and say, outside of Fagundes, I think there's a lot more depth pieces that were signed more than anything. But having said that, Yoshida's probably a starter. Billy Sharp, probably a starter, right? So I'm just back and forth in terms of how Vanney's actually going to use Sharp, especially after they sort of made it, very clear they wanted Dejan Joveljic sort of to be the guy down the stretch. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sharp comes off the bench sometimes instead of Joveljic. So It's interesting to sort of say that the maturity level got a little bit better, and with Billy Sharp, and that was one of the things that I was told about, like right away. Whenever I asked about Billy Sharp, I went in and I said, "Why Billy Sharp?" And they're like, "We like him as much off the field as we like him on the field. So those things work for us either way. Even if he doesn't play, and granted, they expect him to play. They expect him to produce. I always get in trouble with people when I say that. But even if he doesn't play, they like him in that locker room. They like him on the bench. They like him sort of being there and taking those guys under his wing, right? They take the Barrios. They take Dejan Joveljic. They take Preston Judd. That's such an important part. It's overlooked all the time. We talk about it on this podcast all the time. I get made fun of endlessly for it, but you're missing that veteran experience, someone like the Sasha Kleshins or the Victor Vasquez's, who were so pivotal to helping those younger teams come together. So Yoshida in there, I'm really excited to see him play, and I think Billy Sharp in there as well is going to sort of help settle this a little bit. Alex, it's not optimistic to say that the Galaxy got better, but did they get good enough with the players they're missing? Overall, we sit there and you say you lost Chicharito, you lost Brugman, you lost
Cáceres.
Cáceres. You lost those guys, season ending. If they're on the team and you did the moves that you did, now you have a really strong team. But they're not on the team. The LA Galaxy don't have a goal scorer like Chicharito. They don't have, sort of an 8 or 6 or whatever you want to put Brugman at, an 8. More than anything. They don't have that 8 in there right now, and Douglas Costa is probably going to end up playing in the center and sort of letting Ricky Puig sort of orbit around him, and somebody's going to have to play that defensive sort of midfielder role. It's probably going to be Cerrillo eventually. I don't know if he starts right away, but that type of thing. They don't have those guys. Mm-hmm. So it's not a stretch to also say the Galaxy are still worse off, even though they had a remarkable transfer window for what they were able to do with their hands basically tied behind their back.
Yeah, I mean, that's the context that really matters here when it comes to judging this transfer window, is given the circumstances they have, they were excellent. But in trying to upgrade the team, I feel like it's a lot more placeholders than it is guys who are going to elevate everybody else. Barrios got experience. He's, been around this league for a while, but he's not necessarily going to be a game changer. Great guy to have off the bench, though. Diego Fagundes this season's been, a dud in terms of where he was last year, having 18 goal contributions. This season, I think he has around 4. So you're kind of banking on if Fagundes can kind of find that form, then maybe he helps lead your team to that next level.
No offense to him, but Austin also has been not the club they were last year either, right?
Yeah.
So you could sort of see that, but they play similar, and so that's what they're hoping that he fits right in. And I think Vanney's high on him, but sorry, continue.
Yeah, with Fagundes, I think that's just maybe like the biggest question mark, where you can get the highest potential there. But again, we don't really know until game time comes around. I really like the move of Cerrillo, having a younger guy, be able to track that ground, be able to kind of, put in the tackles here and there, shield the back line. I think that's a good option to have there, but it's all about his development and how much he improves as a player, and especially having a lot more of the ball at his feet. And Yoshida, I really like the signing of Yoshida just because he's a guy who's been around, the top leagues in Europe. He knows so many different languages. He's a guy who I think really complements Jalen Neal very well.
Mm-hmm.
He's so good at aerial duels. Just looking at his stats there. I mean, Jalen Neal, the one thing drawback about him is, he's not necessarily as dominant in the air, but having a guy like Yoshida next to you, that definitely helps a lot. And I think that really makes the puzzle of the back line just fit perfectly. So I think there's going to be a lot of improvements in that sense, but overall, it just depends on how they mesh with their chemistry, how can they get on page, and like I said earlier, there's a lot of questions there, and these next couple of games are going to be a big audition tape to see if there is some actual serious thoughts of them making the playoffs.
Tom Bogert for The Athletic wrote a piece talking about the transfers, and had some quotes from the LA Galaxy on it. I'll read some of those because one of them for sure is a guy who doesn't talk that often. So for us, it was a very successful window. Head coach and sporting director Greg Vanney told The Athletic we knew the challenge would be trying to get difference-making players because there's only so many guys who are free agents that are realistic and make sense. It became about getting core pieces that could help us in the short term and fit with what we wanted to do long term. We really like the pieces we got. And then Jovan Korovsky says, I didn't realize how hard and difficult it would be to navigate the sanctions. When we got to this stage, you realize what's out on the market, right? So it was sort of like, it was very difficult. Will Kuntz came in and said, when you're strictly interleague in the window, everything is pretty reactive. Said Kuntz, you're waiting for other teams to make their moves abroad to free them up to move pieces. You're always waiting on other clubs. And again, just some perspective of what the LA Galaxy were able to talk about. I want to bring out something that seems strange and crazy, and also, of course, it almost seems natural at this point. You talked about Jalen Neal and Maya Yoshida. Well, happy birthday to them both because they're both born on the same day. So if you want to be a starting center back for the LA Galaxy, you need to be born on August 24th. Is that what it is? Yeah, August 24th, right? That's what you that's apparently that's a job requirement now. Is that just one of those crazy stats that we're going to talk about in 10 years? Remember when the LA Galaxy had 2 starting center backs that had the exact same birthdays? It seems weird, right?
I mean, it's so funny. I mean, just imagine if the team just becomes a just defensive rock and everyone's going to point, oh, the center backs should have the same birthday. It's all you need. I mean, again, LA Galaxy have been trendsetters, so if this works out, we'll see the rest of the league be doing this.
Are they Leos? I need to know. I wish the chat room was there, but able to look up the different signs, because I'm a Leo from July 23rd, but I'm right on the cusp of Cancer Leo. Like the day it can flip-flop depending on what it is, so I'm a cusp. So I think it goes for like a whole month, and I would imagine they're also Leos, which makes sense because Leos should be defenders. There probably won't be. Somebody's going to tell me it's something else, and I don't care.
Yeah, I have no clue, man.
You don't know? It says, what was is it the joke is like I'm a physicist? And they're like, oh, I'm a Leo, and it's like one of those things. It's like, no, those aren't the same things, but people think they are. So anyway, there was a little bit of that. I did want to talk about something that became more difficult to say, but at least we tried. I didn't realize this was difficult to say until I said it out loud. So the LA Galaxy have launched a fan council. Try saying that 3 times fast. Trust me, it's harder than you think. The fan council, and this is, I would imagine, a reaction to sort of the troubles that the LA Galaxy have had with their fan base over the last couple of years with the supporters strike, supporters group in their boycott earlier this year until Chris Klein was released or relieved of his duties as president. And so this seems like a reaction to it. And I don't know that it's a bad idea. I also don't know that it's a good idea. I don't know how seriously they're going to take any suggestions from people on the fan council, but at least it's something that is happening, and it'll be something that we'll get to talk about as it gets formed. But the Galaxy Fan Council, which is open to both season ticket members and non-season ticket members alike, will be comprised of a diverse group of 15 members that represent the LA Galaxy fan base, and will have a forum to provide feedback and make suggestions. Members of the Galaxy Fan Council will participate in quarterly meetings with LA Galaxy and AEG executives to discuss the game day experience, concessions, season ticket benefits, and more. Fans can apply by going to galaxyfancouncil.com and filling out the application. The application process is open as of Tuesday, August 22nd, and will close Tuesday, September 12th, with the Fan Council being announced the week of September 18th. So you have that looked forward to. You said, we are excited to announce the launch of the LA Galaxy Fan Council and to bring our most passionate and creative fans into the decision-making process, said LA Galaxy Senior Vice President of Revenue and Strategy, Uriel Martinez. All right. Our goal is to better understand what LA Galaxy fans want out of their experience with the club. We believe that receiving feedback from our most passionate fans will allow us to do so. So there you go. Again, galaxyfancouncil.com is where you can find that. Alex, a necessary step from the LA Galaxy, maybe some whitewashing of maybe some of the problems that have existed between fans and the front office?
I mean, when I heard this news about the fan council, I was just like, you know what? It's better than having nothing at all, you know? I mean, it's, I guess, you know, an interesting idea to see how it gets executed. Obviously, I think it's a good idea that they did both, you know, season ticket holders and non-season ticket holders. I think that was a very important aspect of this that the Galaxy kind of needed to announce. I'm really interested to see just how much power they have too as well, because if you're a fan council, you'd expect that, you know, you'd be able to have a say in some things when it comes to the game day experience. So, I mean, I'm just interested to see how this is going to work. I mean, how often our conversations going to be with the club. Again, we know that obviously the supporter and club relations this season have, you know, kind of been a roller coaster, especially given the boycott at the start of the year, which feels like so long ago now. The season feels so long. But I mean, it's a necessary thing, I think, to have now. I think we've seen a lot more clubs trying to, you know, be closer with their supporters. And again, we've seen this sport in this country kind of continue to grow. And I think, you know, it's a good thing to have. Again, I'm just curious to see how much power these people really have. And if the Galaxy are really going to listen to them, or is it just a thing just to have, you know, something to just perch on the desk there?
That would be the worst thing, right? Is that one, that they have it and then they don't listen to the people, and that then, you know, it quietly gets disbanded over the next 2 to 3 years and goes away and never comes back. You would hope that the LA Galaxy embrace it like it is actually a sounding board. You know, that we can, that people can talk about concession prices that continue to skyrocket for what seems like no apparent reason in a lot of ways. I thought it was a good joke, and I think I told this. I went to the Taylor Swift concert. I was at SoFi. I bought a what is it, like a 24-ounce Modelo, right? So yeah, I was like, okay, no problem, 24-ounce Modelo. You're not old enough to drink, so I don't want to hear it. I went to get a 24-ounce Modelo, and I got that, and we got some other things, and like the whole deal. And it ended up being like $75. I'm like, whatever, don't care. I'm having a good time. But I was still like, okay, sure, whatever. So then went to Target the next day and saw that 24-ounce Modelo for $2.50 that I paid like probably $20 for. So those are the things that hopefully the fan council can talk about. And listen, there are a lot of places who do concessions better than the LA Galaxy. And have for a long time. And a lot of that is because of existing partnerships and different things that are there. There's some hits, there's some misses. Somebody said that if they join the fan council, that their one suggestion would be that obviously we need more cookie cards, which I thought was, you know, that's the kind of in-depth stuff you need to know is more cookie cards for everything. I have to walk by them every time I go down.
That's what really matters.
Why don't we just get a bucket of cookies whenever we go down to the press conference next time, and then we could just like share them with the players and we just hand them around and have cookies, right? That should be allowed. I mean, you know, I know COVID cases are on the rise again, but we should be able to get away with that, right?
I mean, yeah, we should. I mean, it's good bonding.
Okay, good. We'll do that. But anyway, the fan council is out there. The other interesting thing that pops up, and it pops up every once in a while, and I sit there and say, you know, if they ever wanted to do a reality show where they got reporters out there to just show how horrible reporters are and out of shape, it's let the reporters go through the Train Like a Pro fantasy camp from October 20th to 22nd that the LA Galaxy are holding. And so they launched that. It is the fantasy camp. They of course show the lockers, Alex, with the person's name on it, right? Don't you want want to see a locker up there that says Alex Ruiz, and you're getting out there and you're bending over to tie on your kicks, and like, you know, you're putting on the LA Galaxy and you're going out there, and then just have somebody like Kobe Jones run you into the ground for like 30, 45 minutes until you can't breathe anymore. And then, you know, I think they should have like a separate boot camp just for reporters, just so we remember how difficult it is to run back and forth for 90 minutes, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, just put us in the player's shoes. I mean, in my case, I mean, I'm still pretty young. I'm 19. So for me, I take that seriously. I'd be like, yo, if I'm going to be a professional footballer, this is my only shot here. Like, I would be training for at least like 3 months if this opportunity came around for me. I mean, I'm still young, right?
You are.
Potential.
You could see you're in that spot, and trust me, it goes by in a flash. Just wait for it. Where you talk to the players and they're older than you, and you're like, oh, this is, oh yes sir, no sir, like the whole deal. Now I get there and I get the yes sirs from the players, and I want to reach across there and smack them and be like, stop it. I go, I used to be able to. There's a time, Alex, it'll come. You'll know when it happens, but you'll sit there and go, you know, if I'm going to play professional soccer, I'm kind of getting old for this. You know, you'll be standing in the locker room next to the guys sucking in your gut, and you're like, okay, so now it's like only like 2 guys in here who are older than me. Whenever Ashley Cole was there, it felt good because he was still older than me at the time whenever he was in here. Now, there are no players who are older than me, and I only have to hope that the coaches continue to be older than me, because that's the only thing that keeps me sort of grounded. So you still have a while to go, but trust me, it's going to go away one of these days. So if they give you a chance to go out there, yeah, you better train and do all that. If they give me a chance to go out there, I might have to pass because I'm afraid I'm going to like pull a hammy or something like that pretty quickly. But anyway, that camp is going on. If you go to lagalaxy.com /fantasy camp, you can find all that wonderful information. But people should do. I know that people have done this in the past. They always seem to have a great time. I would say that no matter what your feelings are about the current state of the LA Galaxy, if you wanted to do this, don't let that stop you. Go do it, because it's a short window of time where you can get out there and still run around and do those things and be next to a team and a club that you know obviously still love if you're listening to this podcast or you're want to go to the fantasy camp. So go out there and absolutely get it done. Right, Alex? You don't save it till tomorrow.
Right now I'm going to start training right tomorrow. Wake up 6 a.m., just have a pure egg yolk and just go out for a run.
I like the fact that you're like, I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. I get up at like 5 because there's a little 3.5-year-old that comes in and wakes me up every morning. It's a great alarm clock. I never get to my alarm clock, so it's always good. But I like that you were like 6 a.m. That's early. That's
early for me.
That's early. Okay, good. That's good. Keep it that way. Try to maintain that as long as you can. One of the other things before we sort of get to some of the standings and some of that stuff, the LA Galaxy going to be wearing their Kick Childhood Cancer jerseys, and this is the Marvel tops as well. I don't know what Marvel movie they're trying. I'm sure somebody who's smarter than me will invoke this one. The kid looks adorable, so we're going to allow that to happen. They're, as Alex said before we started, at least they're blue and gold. Like, at least they're Galaxy colors, which is a positive as well. So this will be their warm-up jersey going on there, and a lot of times they sell these, and a lot of times there's auctions for these as well. So pay attention as we sort of get ready for the games that and pay attention to all the different things the Galaxy have to offer. But this is one of the warm-ups. So when you see the Galaxy coming out in sort of the blue and gold, you know it's not a new uniform. It's just the new warm-ups that are coming in. Alex, thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up because of the colors, but overall, it's sort of like I don't get it. Is that what I was getting from our conversation before?
I mean, yes, thumbs up because of the colors, but I mean, what is this supposed to be? I mean, who are you supposed to represent in this? I mean, I'm assuming one of the figures there is Thor. I don't know, but I mean, it's cool for the colors. I mean, if you just want to buy it to examine it and go crazy of what it's supposed to be, then go for it.
Right.
But obviously, this is for a good cause, kick childhood cancer. I'm really looking forward to kind of just seeing how the team looks coming out, warming up with these, and with this I think what is it, this sponsorship with Marvel or this partnership with Marvel.
It's a partnership.
It's gonna be some cool merch. I think the ball that they had, I think that's pretty dope. And obviously if you're a big comic book guy, I mean this is something you gotta cop.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe that's my thing. I'm not a big comic book guy, so I'm sure there's some, like, awesomeness that I'm missing here. And they're like, oh, no, if you look right here, it's actually part of the canon back in the day that this happened. And now we're
just
finally
out of touch.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know. There's too many things for me to keep track of anymore. And ever since Elon took away my tweet deck, I feel like I'm not in touch with anything anymore. I've never been less connected on Twitter. Thanks, Elon. I tweet less than I ever have in my entire life. Good job, buddy. All right. Let's get to some other things here as we sort of close down, get ready to talk about the Chicago game coming up. Eastern Conference standings, as you see it, Cincinnati, 51 points. If we were watching U.S. Open Cup and all that fun stuff with Messi and Cincinnati getting past, or Miami getting past Cincinnati, the late goals and extra time, all the fun stuff, it was quite entertaining. But as it stands, Cincinnati's still at the top and Miami's still at the bottom. You want to watch a fun story, is going to be how far can Miami climb in their remaining games, because they have the same number of games played as the LA Galaxy right now, 22. So they have a lot of games that they got to play. With Leagues Cup and everything else, they got that time. They were able to test themselves into all these different situations. So they come back to MLS flying. Absolutely flying. They can't do anything wrong. They'll play in a U.S. Open Cup for their second trophy of the season, if you can believe that. They're about to win a treble. All right? That's really what's going to happen here, is they're about to win a treble. They're going to win the League Cup. They're going to win the U.S. Open Cup. And if they make it to the playoffs, which is still a stretch because they have less points than the LA Galaxy by 4 points, if they make it to the playoffs, they very well could win MLS Cup as well. It's an unbelievable story, a lot of fun, and somebody tried to argue, I think, Alex, they're like, well, are we still going to talk about parity whenever Messi is, when Messi comes in here and he just destroys everybody? Yeah, absolutely, because Cincinnati had a chance to win that game. So don't tell me that the good teams can't play Messi and those guys, and as a matter of fact, I thought Miami got lucky that they came back and that game was able to do stuff. So it's not over. There's a lot of games to be played for Miami, so watch that. Now, having said that, I'd love to have the same excitement about the LA Galaxy, but when we look at the standings over in the Western Conference, it is St. Louis and LAFC at the top. LAFC had a good midweek win over Colorado 4-0. That was on Wednesday night. Now you have the LA Galaxy down there who didn't get to play on Sunday, who now get to play on Saturday. Again, 22 games played, 22 points for the LA Galaxy, and currently sitting 9 points out of that spot, right? So 31 points is the last spot. That's where Minnesota is at. If you look, the LA Galaxy have games against Portland and Kansas City and Dallas and Minnesota. And so there's going to be a chance to jump all those teams. That's there for them. Having said that, it feels like a long... St. Louis has twice as many points as the LA Galaxy. They've done it in 2 more games, but twice as many points as the LA Galaxy, and they lead the Western Conference right now with 44 points, and LAFC just 40 points, 4 points behind them there with the same number of games. I'm looking at Seattle has 25 played, so the LA Galaxy have 3 games in hand on Seattle. Just a lot of games still to play. The LA Galaxy have 3 games in hand on Kansas City, which is good. That means you could jump Kansas City with the wins. If you use Greg Vanney's formula, just get those wins, Alex, and then those games in hand, all of a sudden that gap isn't 9. It's more like 4 points, right? And so you can make up 4 points, right? So that's in there as well. Supporter Shield is a lot of the same stuff there. But I want to get to this Chicago game and just... This feels like a game the LA Galaxy should be able to win. And having said that, it's a difficult game for the LA Galaxy to play as well, because I think Chicago has been playing, at least they were playing better after or before the break. Out of the break, like I said, they haven't had as much luck, but that's only 1 game for them. It was at home, and they lost pretty handily to Orlando, but they scored first, which is a dangerous thing for the LA Galaxy, who doesn't necessarily score a lot of goals. So this game, 7:30 p.m. coming up on Saturday, August 26th, 7:39 p.m. is your kickoff. This game on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. No bypass of the window, particularly on that one. Alex, what are you expecting from the Chicago Fire? Can the LA Galaxy match sort of the energy of the moment in these last 12 games? They have to do it 1 game at a time, starting with Chicago.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about Chicago is that they're kind of in no man's land of, you're a good team, but you're not a great team. You're not a horrible team, but I mean, you're just kind of stuck there in the middle. They're in that spot to fight for the final playoffs seedings in the East. So every game matters for them. And I think for me, the big thing to come away with Chicago is, they're very dangerous on set pieces. Xherdan Shaqiri is a great when it comes to the dead ball situations, whether that's a corner kicks, whether that's free kicks. I mean, during training today, I think they spent 20 minutes, just working on defending set pieces. So that's a big emphasis for the Galaxy in this game. And, I've always said so many times that the Galaxy play up to the level of their opponent. And I think that's been true on so many occasions since Greg Vanney took over. And, if Chicago is just going to, low block it and, make it difficult, it's going to be a hard game for the Galaxy. And I don't see them coming out with anything, So this is definitely gives me trap game vibes in a way.
Right.
Just because, I don't know what to expect from this team at all. I mean, you could spin a wheel, throw a dart somewhere, and I'd believe whatever result it puts out there.
Yeah.
So at this point,
go ahead.
Oh yeah, and at this point, I'm just hoping to just see anything positive. Again, like we mentioned earlier, this team has gone 28 days without a game. So I mean, any positive is going to be magnified a lot in this game for this club.
Yeah, negatives will be magnified, positives will be magnified. There's just not that many games left, so the microscope is right there. If you look at just the season stats, and Greg Vanney talked about it today whenever he was talking to the media, he was talking about, listen, low block and counter, right? These are guys who can get out there and they can get you hurt. You look at the Chicago's season-wide percentage numbers, it's 46%. That tells me they don't mind not having the ball. You look at the LA Galaxy at 55%, you know the LA Galaxy want the ball, right? And so the good news is that I think Chicago will allow the LA Galaxy to play their style, which is to have possession. I don't think they're going to high press. I don't think they're going to do a lot about that. I think they're going to be low block. But we talk about game of transitions. This is going to be a game of transitions. The only way to make Chicago really pay for and pull them out of the way they want to play is by scoring first and then making Chicago have to come back and fight to try and score another goal. And when the LA Galaxy do that, if they have finishers, that's whenever things start to open up and they can be more direct, right? The Galaxy love to play counterattacking soccer, Alex. They just don't do it a lot because they're usually in possession. And, if they are not in possession and trying to be a little more direct, it's usually because they're behind. But doing that when you're ahead is a recipe for success for the LA Galaxy. So I want to see more directness. I would love to see Michael Barrios come into this game and possibly provide some of that more directness, trying to get him back behind, letting Ricky Puig, who, by the way, it feels like you almost forgot that Ricky Puig was even on this team because they haven't played for a month, right? But Ricky Puig was playing really well towards the end of the break, was making all the passes, scoring goals, was doing a lot of stuff. You're going to have to see that. He's the captain now. I am the captain now. He's the captain now. And he needs that. He needs to show that.
Yeah, this can be a big game for Ricky Puig, having the captain's armband. I mean, 24 years old. I mean, he just came a year ago, and now he's club captain. He's kind of got all these responsibilities on his shoulders. And, he's a pretty mature player. He knows how to handle this. I mean, he's played at Barcelona, so he knows what real pressure is like, what it's like to, kind of be at a club where you can get, scrutinized and everything's just so much more intense. And I think, Ricky's going to, do well at handling this situation. Like you said, Josh, he's been scoring goals. He's been doing assists. He's been doing his thing in the midfield, his little spin moves out of pressure. I think that this is going to be, another testament to just how good Ricky Puig can be. And he always appears for the big games, and he's always a guy that shows out. Just in this situation where, if Chicago wants to go low block and really frustrate the Galaxy, I mean, is Ricky Puig going to start spraying out balls that then lead to transition moments? That's kind of my big worry here, where sometimes he tries to be the hero too many times,
right.
Which, we understand he's capable of having those game-changing moments, but at some time you kind of need to recognize to, just slow it down a little bit. Don't be too risky and put the team in a situation where they're caught on the counter and in transition, and then that leads to something, So it's definitely going to be a lot of composure from Ricky in this game, just to be able to sustain just not only his emotions, because I think he's still on a yellow card warning, but also just being able to lead this team and be the offensive outlet that he's been all season long.
Yeah, you can see it. Looking at Chicago's last wins, win over Portland, win over Sporting Kansas City, win over Nashville, win over Montreal, run over Toronto. Yeah, there's some people who probably should be run over in that. The whole thing is that you look, their last two losses both came against Orlando, both 3-1, one on the road, one at home. So maybe looking at Chicago and what they have been doing, which was a lot of tying, a lot of losses. All of a sudden the shift started. They fired their coach, Ezra Hendrickson, right? So Ezra's no longer there. And all of a sudden, they start to change and they start to do a little bit better. We'll see if the break has caused them to perhaps rethink their break that they sort of had going on there. Just looking at their lineup and looking at what they can do. You talked about Shaqiri, but they get goals from a bunch of different places. So just sort of keep that in mind. Kai Kamara is out there still. You can't count Kai Kamara out. He's got 5 goals this year. You got Haile Selassie, and I have not watched Chicago play that much at all. So, but 4 goals, 4 assists on the year so far. Herber's in there, 4 goals, right? So they get a lot of these a lot of these guys who have been putting in goals, and they're getting them from different places. They're counterattacking. They have speed. They like to be direct. All those things. So we'll sort of see how they continue to put that together. The other thing I want to talk about is programming, and the LA Galaxy put out a press release about the programming. One of the ones that I tweeted out was that they are giving out 15,000 bags of tortilla chips. Will be given away to fans as they leave Dignity Health Sports Park, courtesy of Siete, I believe. And I would just like to say that I don't think I can fit 15,000 bags of tortilla chips into my car at the end. So, Alex, I think I'm probably going to have to share with everybody. So, people were asking why they give away stuff at the end, and my whole thing is a lot of times they give stuff away at the end so that you don't throw it on the field. And I could just imagine tortilla chips come raining down should the LA Galaxy lose. So, for me, that's...
I feel like if they do win the wooden spoon, that should, instead of confetti, just throw tortilla chips out there, really celebrate the moment.
You were too young, but there used to be a time when we would throw tortillas at Arizona State games, and there were tortillas all over the place. There used to be a thing with like the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl and stuff like that, and so they're like tortilla. It was a whole thing. Don't ask. But we got pretty close. That's about as close as we ever got to throwing tortilla chips around. Merchandise, new Metro and Ness inventory has landed in the LA Galaxy store, so you can check that out. There's a retro crewneck color block sweatshirt, LA Galaxy retro nylon windbreaker. I'll let you guys look at that. Soccer Fest will be open. The LA Galaxy Special Olympics unified team will be playing after this game as well. There was one of the coaches actually sent me a message, and I wanted to read it just that way we could make sure that we covered all the bases and did all that stuff. So Coach Matt sort of sent me a thing. He goes, just wanted to let you know the Special Olympics Unified Team has their home game against Chicago Fire Unified Team after the first team game on Saturday. Would love it if you could give us a shout out on this week's shows and let the people know. You have now been notified. Matt used to be a player. He's aged out of the program as a roster player, and now he is, of course, a Coach Matt. He says the team suffered a tough loss on penalties in Colorado back in late June, so they're looking to get that win this weekend. So stick around, watch the Olympic Unified Team play. There's nothing better than watching those guys play either. It's a lot of fun, and you should be out there supporting, so remember to do that after the game as well. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Season ticket member benefits. Of course, they're always trying to push that. And then, that's about it. That's where we sit with the LA Galaxy getting ready to take on Chicago. A lot of stuff still coming here. Alex, we can look at the schedule too. And as we look at this schedule and sort of try to figure out this LA Galaxy team, just 2 games here in August, but they're back-to-back and rapid fire. LA Galaxy hosting Chicago, then away to San Jose midweek for the Cali Classico. And then you get September, which is just loaded, right? LA Galaxy versus Houston, LA Galaxy versus St. Louis, LA Galaxy at LAFC, LA Galaxy versus Minnesota. We've talked about that stretch before. It's 4 games right there, but you get to sleep in your bed every single night. That's one of the advantages there. You talk about winning games. Winning at LAFC is one of those games where you could steal a whole bunch of points. And again, you get to sleep in your bedroom every single night on that. So that one's coming up on 9/16. The El Tráfico there, final El Tráfico of the season. And then you have the LA Galaxy away to Austin, LA Galaxy hosting Portland. And then finally, again, away to Seattle, away to Minnesota. And that was going to be tough. It was going to be away to Seattle, away to Minnesota, and then home to Dallas to sort of finish things out. But with the rescheduled Salt Lake game now, Alex, the LA Galaxy go away to Seattle, away to Minnesota, home to Real Salt Lake, and home to Dallas. Having 2 games at the end, and of course the 10-21 game is fan appreciation night. Don't think my spreadsheet isn't getting fired up for that one, where I can tell you how the LA Galaxy have fared on fan appreciation night over the years. So we'll talk about that as well. But this is a tough schedule. Is it completely impossible for the Galaxy for the Galaxy to make the playoffs, Alex? I don't think so. Do you think it's impossible?
I don't think so. I mean, again, I feel like this team in so many different ways, like we talked about with the transfers, not necessarily guys that are going to, be superstars here and there, but they fit the holes just right. And I think that's what you need, right? If, the ship is sinking, the least you can do is just cover up the holes and not make the situation worse. So, I mean, I think these are guys that if, they have their moments, they could be game changers. Again, there's a lot of question marks in the case of Billy Sharp. How effective is he going to be here? I mean, how long is he going to play? I mean, he's a guy who has a ton of mileage on him, so I don't necessarily see him as a starter right away. Diego Fagundes, like we mentioned, right? A guy like the rest of Boston, which is underperforming compared to last season, but maybe a change of scenery, a change of, players out here. I think that could maybe, help elevate his game here as well. Maya Yoshida, having a guy like him, I think really bumps up that defense, which, has kind of been led by a lot of younger players. So I think having a guy like Yoshida kind of lead them through is the right thing that you want to have there as well. And like we mentioned, for me, just how the midfield works without Brugman is going to be my biggest question, biggest thing I'm watching for the rest of the season, because, I mean, Brugman was so key to everything, both offensively and defensively. And now the fact that he's gone for the rest of the year, I don't think anybody else on this team can replicate that kind of production, but you've got to find somebody that can do it. And, we saw how important the midfield was last year when the Galaxy made their run to the playoffs. This year, it's not the same at all. And I feel like that's kind of what makes it so much harder to believe that this team can make the playoffs. The fact that there is a bit of instability and unknown in that department, and arguably the most important position of the field.
Yeah. Does if the Galaxy don't make the playoffs, is Greg Vanney still the coach to start 2024?
I believe he should be. I mean, this is a guy who's kind of cemented and kind of built a foundation with this club when so many years we've had a revolving door of coaches, of people trying to do their own things. But I think now the setup that they have in the organization, I think it's, somewhat stable. I think, the signings that they've had the last couple of years have been the last year, actually, in the last year cycle. I think they've been really good. They fit this team. Again, this year's just been so unlucky and so unfortunate. So many, bad omens, having your first game suspended, having the last game against RSL suspended, 3 season-ending injuries. And I feel having 2 DP slots possibly open this winter definitely helps a lot. There'll definitely be a shorter leash on Greg Vanney at the start of 2024, for sure. But I mean, I think this is the coach that's implemented his system very well in his players. They, all fit what he wants to do. It's just been so unfortunate to see kind of how it's developed in a way. And I wouldn't say this is all Vandy's fault, but obviously, you can't necessarily keep the same guy there for so long if things aren't going as you expect.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm just glad that somebody said it who also, I didn't tell Alex what to say. I also believe that, one, I agree with Alex, and 2 is I believe the LA Galaxy don't have the appetite for that right now. At least as an organization, it doesn't seem they do. It doesn't seem like they have that sort of ability to sit there, and they have allowed Greg to right a lot of the wrongs that they have had before. And so whether or not he can get that over and have that actually impact on the field and in a positive way, that's still remains to be seen. I'm sort of the opinion that it's the leash, right? It's the leash in 2024 of what that happens. The Galaxy start the way that they started in 2023, and he won't be long for it. Some people would say, well, then why not pull the plug now? And I understand that, but I would also say that you're not seeing the stuff that's happened behind the scenes and sort of how things have improved there. We'll see if they improve or how they change in the off season too. That could also maybe dictate a lot of what happens. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, for predictions guaranteed to be wrong, Alex, you can lead us off. Do the LA Galaxy get the win against the Chicago Fire coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a victory. I think it's going to be a very tight game. In my gut, I want to say it's going to be a boring 1-0 game. I just feel Chicago is just going to, try to make it so frustrating. But again, a result's a result, right? 3 points is 3 points. Nobody's judging, if it's pretty or not. You just got to get the victory, and that's where the Galaxy are at this season. So I'm going with the 1-0 boring game against Chicago Fire. I really hope to be wrong in that it's a boring game. I do want them to win, just so we, can see a little bit of a glimpse that there is a chance they can make the playoffs, because I think that's going to make the season so much more interesting. And again, we've seen this team can go on a run. So going 1-0 LA Galaxy.
All right. Well, that's interesting. A clean sheet with Maya Yoshida making his debut there, right? So we'll see that. We're all expecting Jalen Neal to play in that game as well. Greg
Can I add one thing real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
The Galaxy haven't lost to Chicago since 2010. So it's been a long time. And to put that into context, Jalen Neal was like 6 or 7 years old the last time they lost to Chicago.
Yeah, but you, I don't know if you listen to the podcast enough. That goes against Josh's roulette theory, right? The roulette theory is like whenever you go to Vegas and like you're going to gamble, and let's say you're going to roulette. Roulette's a horrible game to gamble on because it's just chance and there's not a lot of skill involved, even though people have different things that they want to do. But there's things called like betting on the outside, and betting on the outside is just like red or black, right? So you're just going to bet red or black. So you'll go up there and they show you on the thing like what numbers have hit, and it shows you whether those are red or black. And so you can go there and you can be like, last 5 numbers have been black. That means that red's coming up, right? Even though it's the same odds every time you spin it, right? It's one of those things like flipping a coin every single time, right? The odds are 50-50 every single time. Even if there's 6 in a row that have been heads, there's still a 50-50 chance on the next one that it's going to be. But I don't listen to that. I say it's the roulette theory, which is, hey, the Chicago Fire haven't haven't beaten the LA Galaxy in 10 years. Sounds like it's their time. All records are meant to be broken there, Alex, right? So
I'm just trying to cause chaos here. That's all.
That's okay. No, I understand. I'm with you as well. I think the LA Galaxy get the win as well, but I think there's no possible way they keep a clean sheet because that's just not in their DNA. So it's 2-1, but the really crazy thing is it'll be 2-0 with about 20 minutes to go, and they'll allow a goal, and it'll be just squeaky bum time for the last time, and the Galaxy just barely hang on to get it. So I think the Galaxy get the win here as well. I think that sets them up for a good trip up to San Jose midweek. I think Billy Sharp possibly playing in San Jose, possibly even being available for Saturday. We should find out by tomorrow, really. And Vanney will likely not tell us. So you'll find out on Saturday because he won't want to tell anybody that it's different there. So, I'm going 2-1 LA Galaxy. I think this is the time. I think this game is ripe for the picking. I think the Galaxy are getting them off of a long travel, and they just played over the weekend. I don't know if that's positive or negative. I am not worried about the first 15 minutes. I am worried about the second 15 minutes. Show me what happens after all the adrenaline is working. Show me what happens in that 15 to 30 to 45, that end of the first half. Show me what the LA Galaxy are doing and how they're playing. And I think if you go and watch them play in the latter parts of that first half, that's going to tell you how that game is going. So if you're watching and the LA Galaxy are not controlling possession and Chicago's getting a lot of chances towards the end of that first half, I think the Galaxy are going to have problems in that game. I think that's sort of the bellwether thing about trying to get up and into a game mentality when they haven't been for over 30 days or close to 30 days, 28 days, right? So almost 30 days, almost a full month. The Galaxy have not been in this game intensity situation. Now they're getting to do that. So I think that's where it goes. Alex, anything else you want to talk about the game or anything else you want to get to before we get out of here?
Nope, that's all.
All right, Alex, why don't you tell people where they can find you? Make sure you give them all those good information. We'll get on out of here.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at ALXR15. There I have my links to my Substack, Galactic Tribune, where you can subscribe and get more LA Galaxy content and coverage right your way. Definitely been a lookout as a lot more content is going to be coming in that direction.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. And a big shout out, big round of applause for Alex filling in for everybody. We appreciate Alex. I'm sure it won't be the last time. So thank you for doing that. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at JGuessman, JGUESMAN. Of course, at Galaxy Podcast, at Galaxy Podcast on Threads, and of course, cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can go to our YouTube page where this video will be posted, where you're probably already watching it. But go and subscribe and like and all that fun stuff. We certainly appreciate it. All right, for Mr. Alex Ruiz, I'm Josh Pato Guessman. You've been listening. You've been watching to our little Corner of the Galaxy. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.